I'm not controlled by no set, not loyal to no party, not loyal to nobody's telling me what to do. And that really is when you gain your greatest ability to manifest. That's when you truly are carrying the power of God, because you become God of your own universe.
Look down, I see the stars. Look down, I see the stars. Look down, I see the stars.
Hi everyone, this is attorney Darryl Robinson, and this is another episode of Justice Unveiled. In this episode, we're going to cover two different cases. The first case is going to be the Georgia grand jury indictment of Donald Trump. And the second case is going to be the petition filed by Michael Oher. If you recall the subject matter of the movie The Blind Side, and his petition contesting the conservatorship that was filed in the court of Tennessee. And focusing on the grand jury indictment of Donald Trump, the grand jury indictment was based upon the Georgia's RICO statute. The RICO statute on a federal level was created in around 1970, and it was basically created to deal with organized crime, notably the mafia. After the federal RICO statute was created, the states created their own version of the RICO statute, some with some different twists. In the case of the Georgia RICO statute, typically the difference between Georgia RICO statute and the federal RICO statute is the federal RICO statute requires the criminal activity to be a part of a criminal enterprise over a long period of time. Georgia doesn't require it to be over a long period of time. In addition to that, the federal RICO statute covers 35 criminal acts that could be subject to the RICO statute. The Georgia statute has around 50 criminal acts that can be subject to the RICO statute. So former President Donald Trump was indicted by the Georgia grand jury along with a number of others, including his lead attorney, Rudy Giuliani. There was about a total of 41 indictments altogether. But of the 41 indictments, about 7 or so applied to Donald Trump. For one, violating the Georgia RICO Act. That's really a catch-all as far as that is concerned. Then there was 3 counts of solicitation, a violation of an oath by a public officer. That was important because if you recall, Trump contacted the Secretary of State at that time. I think his name was Brad Raffensperger, in terms of that, tried to get him to find 11,780 votes. And that particular Secretary of State, he obviously taped that. That was on audio tape. So that would be that count. Another one is conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer. Then there's 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree. If you recall what they were doing, and when they were filing these petitions or complaints in court, they were attaching an affidavit from individuals who were alleging, swearing under oath that they had seen voter fraud take place, that they had heard voter fraud was taking place, that they had seen double counting the ballots, that they had seen or heard the individuals were voting twice. All these false allegations that were being made. And then another count is 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements and writings. That would be an affidavit is also a false statement, and it also is in writing. Conspiracy to commit filing false documents. If you take an affidavit and it's false affidavit that's put in writing and you file it with the court, that's a crime. 2 counts of false statements in writing and filing false documents. In terms of those are the charges that Donald Trump is facing in the Fulton County Superior Court under the RICO Act. Along with him, Rudy Giuliani, obviously, he was spearheading a lot of those petitions that were being filed, not only in Georgia, but also across the country, and a number of other individuals as far as that is concerned. Because with the RICO Act, you just have to be a part of a criminal enterprise, even though you may not have individually committed an individual act, but you have to be a part of a criminal enterprise that commit acts in furthering of the criminal acts that are done by the criminal enterprise. In this case, voter fraud election. So they were saying that the elections were fraudulent, the results were fraudulent in different states, and they were going around collecting false statements, witnesses' testimony, and actually going into court and filing these false affidavits and having these false testimony. So this particular matter is going to wind through the courts. It's going to take a while. There's been allegations that the Fulton County State's Attorney wants to have a trial around March or May or sometime like that. That's very ambitious because you're talking to a lot of individuals and you're going to talk about a lot of discovery as far as this is concerned. So most judges are not going to allow a trial to take place because in a criminal case, the defendant has constitutional rights, and obviously a right to be able to properly defend himself in court, a right to be to find all statements, all witnesses that are against him in order to be able to prepare for an adequate defense. So this is going to take a lot longer than you think in terms of being able to go to trial. And you can delay it as a defense attorney. You can file different motions. You can file motions to dismiss the indictment, dismiss multiple counts in the indictment. So there's a lot to come from this one. It's going to be a while before this trial. They said it's going to be televised, but in the event, it's going to be a while before you get the opportunity to get to this particular case. And so that's basically what we have here for the Donald Trump indictment. So stay tuned for more information to come on that. The second matter involves Michael Oher. And if you recall, Michael Oher was the individual that played offensive tackle out of the state of Tennessee that ended up going to Ole Miss. Michael Oher had become a ward of the state around the age of 11. The father of a friend got him in a particular high school in Tennessee, and he started playing football. And after 3 years of playing football, a couple allowed Michael Oher to stay with them during his senior year. But by the time he finished his junior year, Michael Oher was a 5-star recruit in football, and he had gotten many scholarship offers to play football. He ultimately ended up going to Ole Miss, that you probably heard about in the movie as far as that is concerned. His petition in court is based upon the conservatorship. When Michael Oher was 18, the allegations in the petition is that he signed some documents that the two individuals that he was staying with presented to him. His understanding, at least according to his petition, is that those documents were based upon adoption. But as it turns out, he has signed documents that were based on a conservatorship. Now, conservatorship is basically the same as guardianship. Here in Illinois, we have guardianship. So typically the standards in order to be able to attain conservatorship/guardianship over an individual is they must be a minor, or they must be physically and mentally incapable, or both, of handling their affairs. So it's interesting. In this case, he signed over voluntarily. It's still curious that it was so easy for them to obtain conservatorship. At least I would have thought the court would have brought him in and gave him an understanding of what it is he was actually signing. So, and it's also interesting that this conservatorship still exists. Michael Oher is like 37 years old now, almost 20 years later, that it still exists. What the conservatorship gives, the same as the guardianship, once you get conservatorship or guardianship over an individual's estate, you'll be able to control their financial affairs, enter into negotiations for them, buy property, sell property on their behalf, buy personal items. And so this has been going on for approximately 20 years. So the crux behind this is that he spent some time in the NFL. He was drafted, I think, like around number 20 something in the NFL. He spent, maybe 5 to 7 years in the NFL. And then there was a movie. These individuals that he had normally lived with, there was a movie made, and they negotiate the movie rights. And so the movie grossed about $330 million. That wouldn't be net, but his proceeds from it, his royalties from it, would have probably been several $1 million. And so his petition is, first and foremost, is an accounting. So as a guardianship, I'm sure likewise as a conservator, you have to provide an accounting based on a periodic schedule provided by the court in terms of how much money came into the estate, how much money went out of the state, receipts of what the money was spent on and the reasons why it would be spent. And it varies from court to court, and I'm sure from judge to judge, how detailed that accounting must be. In this particular case, in his petition, he alleges that he has not received a regular accounting of the proceeds that were received from the royalties from that movie. What was done with those royalties? How was it spent? How much actually came into the estate from those royalties? And so that's what the court. And so from this, two things could happen, depending on the evidence that come out. And when you are a guardian or a conservator, you have a fiduciary duty to the estate to obviously manage the money in a reasonable and safe manner. And so if the money was misappropriated, they can be sued civilly for breach of their fiduciary duty, or they can be charged criminally with fraud and theft. And so, but the first step is to get an accounting. You can't accuse anyone of doing anything without knowing what they actually have done. So this is the petition that they have in court. They're going to have a hearing over the petition. The judge will guarantee it. If, in fact, a regular accounting hasn't been provided pursuant to the previous conservatorship case, the judge will order an accounting. And both sides will have experts, forensic individuals who are specialized in fraud, accounting fraud, finance fraud. They'll take a look at those documents to determine where the money came from, where the money went, how much is left in the estate, what was the spend down. And so a lot of the information is yet to come because this petition is still pending and it was just recently filed. So hopefully it turns out good for the young man. If not, then obviously that's going to be an issue as far as that is concerned. But in this world of sports, unfortunately, these young individuals, particularly someone like him who was a ward of the state, they have other people handling their business. And oftentimes, too often, we find that individuals that handle their business misappropriate their money down the road as far as that is concerned. The good news in a guardianship conservatorship, typically, in Illinois anyway, a surety bond must be purchased. So a surety bond based upon a certain percentage value of the state must be purchased in the event that there is a breach of fiduciary duty, that there is fraud or criminal act committed and theft of the funds. The surety, which is the insurance company, has to pay out the surety bond. Now, this surety bond would have been created a long time ago because he was 18 in terms of that, and we don't know whether or not it was increased as a result, for example, the movie and the royalties from the movie come in as far as the assets of the state. So we don't really know how much that is worth, but there should be a surety bond attached to this conservatorship. Hopefully there was. So at least that would make up for some of the losses, if there happen to be losses, if it comes out that there are some losses. So that's one of the potential good news that can come out of it. Stay tuned. There's more to come because the petition is still pending and has to be a hearing, and we have to find out whether or not there was any misappropriation and what was done with the proceeds. So we look forward to that. Thank you all.
Look down and see the stars. Look down and see the stars. Look down and see the stars.